She sent him packing to a cheap motel only to find out the next morning he owned the entire hotel. The lobby of the Sterling Heights Hotel in Santa Monica was alive with activity. It was Friday night, and the grandeur of the hotel was on full display. Towering palm trees framed the entrance while a sparkling chandelier hung above the reception desk, illuminating the marble floors with a golden glow. Guests bustled in and out. Bellhops darted around with carts full of luggage, and the concierge was busy fielding requests for dinner reservations and sightseeing recommendations. Behind the front desk stood Rachel, a woman in her mid-30s. Her tailored uniform, pristine at the start of her shift, now showed the wear of a long day. She glanced at the clock and sighed. It was only 9 p.m. It had been a particularly chaotic evening, with back-to-back check-ins, a technical glitch in the booking system, and a demanding VIP guest who seemed determined to find fault in everything. Rachel prided herself on her professionalism, but tonight her patience was wearing thin. The automatic doors slid open, letting in a gust of cool evening air. A man stepped inside, his silhouette briefly framed by the warm glow of the lobby lights. At first glance, he looked entirely out of place. His faded jeans, scuffed sneakers, and hoodie seemed more suited to a late-night coffee run than a stay at one of the most prestigious hotels in the city. He carried a single leather messenger bag slung over one shoulder, its edges worn from years of use. Rachel noticed him immediately. Her trained eye assessed him in seconds, and her instincts told her he was just another walk-in, likely someone who couldn't afford the steep prices of the Sterling Heights. She braced herself for what she assumed would be a futile conversation. The man approached the desk with a calm demeanor, his face unreadable but not unfriendly. He leaned slightly on the counter and spoke in a low, even voice. "Good evening. I'd like to book a room for the night, please." Rachel offered him a tight smile, her professional mask firmly in place. "I'm sorry, sir. We're fully booked tonight," she replied, her tone polite but clipped. The man's eyes flicked to the rows of key cards behind her, then back to her face. "Fully booked? Not a single room available?" "That's correct," she said, her fingers tapping lightly on the keyboard in a show of checking the system. "It's been a busy weekend, and we've accommodated all our reservations." The man didn't seem flustered by her response. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, studying her with an air of curiosity. "No cancellations? No late checkouts you can accommodate?" Rachel suppressed an irritated sigh. "I'm afraid not," she said, motioning toward the bustling lobby. "As you can see, we're at capacity." A faint smile crossed his lips, one so subtle she wasn't sure if she imagined it. He nodded once and stepped back. "Thank you for your time." To her surprise, instead of leaving, the man moved to a corner of the lobby and took a seat. He placed his bag on the floor and leaned back, his gaze calmly sweeping the room. Rachel frowned, unsure what to make of him. Rachel tried to refocus on her work, but her attention kept drifting back to the man in the corner. He wasn't doing anything unusual, just sitting quietly, his expression unreadable. Yet, there was something about his presence that unsettled her. Most walk-ins, when turned away, would leave immediately or argue in frustration. This man, however, seemed completely at ease, as if he had all the time in the world. A guest approached the desk, snapping Rachel out of her thoughts. She plastered on her professional smile and handled the request, but her mind continued to wander. Every so often she glanced toward the corner, where the man remained seated, his eyes occasionally scanning the lobby. It wasn't long before one of the bellhops approached her. "Hey, Rachel," he said in a low voice, nodding toward the corner. "That guy over there. Should I ask him to leave? He's not a guest, right?" Rachel hesitated. Technically, the man wasn't causing any trouble. He wasn't loitering near the elevators or disturbing other guests. Still, his lingering presence was unusual. "No," she said after a moment. "Let's leave him for now. If he causes any problems, we'll handle it." The bellhop nodded and walked away, but Rachel couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the back of her mind. Something about the man didn't add up. An hour passed, and the activity in the lobby began to dwindle. Most guests had checked in, and the atmosphere grew quieter. Rachel allowed herself a moment to breathe, sipping water from the bottle she kept hidden under the desk. Just as she was beginning to relax, the man returned to the counter. Rachel's pulse quickened. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm and measured. "I noticed a few people just checked in. Are you sure there's no availability?" Rachel's professional smile faltered. "As I mentioned earlier, those guests had reservations. We've been fully booked for days." He nodded thoughtfully. "I see. And if I wanted to make a reservation for tomorrow, would that be possible?" Caught off guard, Rachel blinked. "Tomorrow?" "Yes," he said, his gaze steady. "Do you have any rooms available tomorrow night?" Rachel frowned and turned to her computer, quickly checking the system. "We do," she admitted reluctantly, "but that doesn't help you tonight." The man's lips curled into a small, enigmatic smile. "No, it doesn't. But it's good to know." Rachel's irritation flared. His tone wasn't confrontational, but it carried a quiet confidence that unsettled her. "Look," she said, her voice sharper than she intended, "if you don't have a reservation and can't afford to stay here, there's a motel a few blocks down. They'll probably have something that fits your situation." She glanced at his worn hoodie and jeans, letting her implication hang in the air. The man didn't react. Instead, he gave her a slight nod and stepped back. "Thank you for your time," he said evenly. This time he didn't return to his seat in the corner. Instead, he walked toward the revolving doors, pausing briefly to glance back at the lobby. For a moment, Rachel thought she saw a flicker of amusement in his eyes, but it was gone before she could be sure. Then he stepped outside, disappearing into the night. Rachel let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She shook her head, brushing off the encounter. The man was gone, and she had more important things to worry about. But as the night wore on, she couldn't help but feel that she hadn't seen the last of him. The next morning, Rachel arrived at the hotel earlier than usual. The late-night encounter with the mysterious man still lingered in her mind, though she told herself it was nothing. People like that came and went, a quirk of the hospitality industry. As she walked through the lobby, she noticed an unusual buzz among the staff. Conversations were hushed but animated, and the bellhops and front desk agents seemed unusually alert. Rachel frowned, glancing around for clues about the commotion. "Did something happen?" she asked Mia, a fellow receptionist. Mia leaned in, lowering her voice. "Apparently the general manager called a last-minute meeting for all staff. Something big." Rachel's stomach tightened. Last-minute meetings rarely meant good news. She nodded and made her way to the break room, where staff were already gathering. The general manager, Mr. Calloway, entered the room with an energy that was both nervous and excited. Beside him stood a man who immediately caught Rachel's attention. It was him. The man from the previous night was standing there, but he was almost unrecognizable. Gone were the hoodie and jeans. In their place was a sharp-tailored suit that radiated sophistication. His leather shoes gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and his posture exuded quiet authority. Rachel froze, her heart pounding in her chest. What was he doing here? "Good morning, everyone," Mr. Calloway began, his voice cheerful but tinged with nervousness. "Thank you for gathering on such short notice. I have some very exciting news to share." He gestured to the man beside him, who gave a polite nod to the room. "This is Mr. Elon Musk," Calloway continued, his smile widening. "As of last week, he is the new owner of the Sterling Heights Hotel." The room fell into stunned silence. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Her mind raced as she replayed the events of the previous night. She had dismissed him, judged him, and sent him packing to a cheap motel, all without realizing who he was. Elon Musk stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the staff. When his eyes landed on Rachel, they lingered for a fraction of a second longer than anyone else. She felt her cheeks flush and quickly looked away. "Good morning," Elon said, his voice calm and measured. "I'm honored to be here today. Sterling Heights has always been a special place, and I'm excited to be part of its future." He paused, his eyes scanning the room again. "Last night I decided to visit the hotel anonymously, to see how it operates without the filter of titles or expectations. What I experienced was enlightening." Rachel's pulse quickened. Was he about to call her out in front of everyone? "I saw incredible teamwork and dedication from many of you," Elon continued, his tone warm. "The bellhops, the concierge, the cleaning staff, you all work tirelessly to ensure this hotel runs smoothly. It's inspiring." A murmur of approval rippled through the room. Rachel felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he wasn't going to mention her at all. But, Elon added, his voice dropping slightly, I also observed areas where we can improve. Moments where we might have fallen short of the kindness and professionalism we strive for. Rachel's stomach churned. She couldn't breathe. I'm not here to judge, Elon said, his tone softening. I'm here to help us grow. Because in the end, it's not about me. It's about all of us working together to create something extraordinary. He stepped back, letting Mr. Calloway take over again. The general manager beamed. Thank you, Mr. Musk. We're excited to work under your leadership and take Sterling Heights to new heights. The staff clapped, though Rachel's hands remained frozen at her sides. As the meeting ended and people began to disperse, Rachel avoided eye contact with everyone, especially Elon Musk. She thought she might escape unnoticed, but as she turned toward the exit, a voice stopped her. Rachel, isn't it? Her blood ran cold. Rachel turned slowly, her heart pounding as she faced Elon Musk. He stood a few feet away, his expression unreadable yet calm. Up close, the weight of his presence was almost overwhelming. Yes, sir, she replied, her voice barely audible. Elon studied her for a moment, his gaze neither harsh nor forgiving. It was as if he were dissecting her thoughts, understanding her without her having to speak. I believe we met last night, he said, his tone neutral but carrying a subtle weight that made her shift uncomfortably. Yes, sir, she repeated, this time quieter. I didn't realize who you were. He nodded slightly, acknowledging her discomfort without pressing her further. That's precisely why I came the way I did. I wanted to see how this hotel operates when no one knows who's watching. Rachel swallowed hard, her throat dry. She wanted to apologize, to explain herself, but the words stuck in her throat. Do you enjoy working here, Rachel? Elon asked, his tone softening just enough to catch her off guard. The question surprised her. I do, she stammered. Most of the time. Elon tilted his head slightly, his expression thoughtful. And what about last night? Did you enjoy yourself then? She felt a wave of shame wash over her. The memory of her dismissive tone, her sharp words, and her assumption about him played vividly in her mind. She shook her head. No, sir, I was tired and I... Tired? He interrupted gently, but the single word carried a deeper meaning. Or perhaps frustrated, overwhelmed? Rachel nodded, unable to meet his eyes. Yes, all of that. But it doesn't excuse how I treated you. Elon was silent for a moment, letting her words hang in the air. Then, to her surprise, he smiled. A small, knowing smile that didn't feel condescending, but almost understanding. Everyone has bad days, he said simply. It's how we learn from them that matters. Rachel blinked, her head snapping up to meet his gaze. She had expected judgment or even anger, but instead, there was something entirely different. Grace. I noticed something last night, Elon continued. You're efficient, quick on your feet, and clearly dedicated. But you let the weight of the day cloud your judgment. That's something I hope we can work on together. Together? She asked, surprised. Elon nodded. Yes, because you're part of the team that makes this hotel what it is. And this hotel has the potential to be so much more than just a business. It can be a place where people feel valued. Not just the guests, but the staff too. Rachel felt her throat tighten. His words weren't just a lecture. They were a challenge. A chance to grow. I'm sorry, sir, she said earnestly, her voice trembling, for how I treated you. It was wrong, and I'll do better. I promise. I believe you, Elon said, his tone genuine. And I appreciate your honesty. Just remember, Rachel, every interaction matters, even the small ones, especially the small ones. With that, he gave her a small nod and walked away, leaving her standing there in a daze. She felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, gratitude, and an unexpected determination. For the first time in her career, Rachel saw her job through a new lens. It wasn't just about dealing with difficult guests or surviving long shifts. It was about creating moments of kindness, of connection, even in the midst of chaos. And she knew that from this moment on, everything would be different. The following weeks at the Sterling Heights Hotel brought a wave of change. Elon Musk's unannounced visit had sent ripples through the staff, igniting a newfound sense of purpose. Training sessions were implemented, new incentives introduced, and the focus shifted toward cultivating an atmosphere of excellence, not just for guests but for the employees themselves. Rachel, in particular, took Elon's words to heart. She approached each shift with a renewed determination, choosing to see challenges as opportunities to grow rather than as obstacles to endure. She made it a point to greet every guest with genuine warmth, to listen rather than assume, and to support her colleagues whenever they faltered. Her efforts didn't go unnoticed. Guests began leaving glowing reviews that mentioned her by name, praising her kindness and attentiveness. Her co-workers started to rely on her as a steady presence, someone who could handle even the most demanding situations with grace. But it wasn't just about external recognition. For Rachel, the real reward was the sense of fulfillment she felt every time she made someone's stay a little brighter. She realized that her job wasn't merely about booking rooms or managing complaints. It was about creating moments that mattered, no matter how small they seemed. Months later, Elon Musk returned to the hotel, this time as himself. No disguise, no pretense. He walked through the lobby with the same calm assurance, taking in the changes with quiet satisfaction. The staff greeted him with a mix of awe and respect, their nervous energy replaced by pride in how far they'd come. Rachel stood behind the front desk, her uniform crisp, her posture confident. When Elon approached, she smiled warmly, a far cry from the strained, dismissive expression she'd worn the first night they met. "Mr. Musk," she said, her voice steady, "welcome back to the Sterling Heights Hotel. It's an honor to have you here again." Elon returned her smile, his eyes glinting with approval. "It's good to be back, Rachel. I see the changes we talked about have made a difference." "They have," she said sincerely. "Thank you for believing in us, even when I didn't make it easy." He chuckled lightly. "Growth rarely is easy, but you've done an incredible job." As he turned to leave, Rachel felt a surge of gratitude, not just for Elon's forgiveness or his faith in her, but for the lesson he'd taught her, a lesson about kindness, humility, and the power of second chances. From that day forward, Rachel continued to embody those values not just in her job but in every aspect of her life. And as for Elon Musk, his visit to the Sterling Heights Hotel became a story the staff would tell for years, a reminder that you never know who you're speaking to, and that a single act of kindness can transform everything. Because in the end, it's not the grand gestures or the towering chandeliers that make a hotel truly remarkable. It's the people, their hearts, their actions, and their willingness to grow. And Rachel would never forget that. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tales that inspire and resonate. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.